Yes, we have to give the zakat as 2.5% of the number of the shares, not the money.
No, it's the value. It's the value. Yeah. It's the value. It's the value.
The shares like money.
You take the number of shares times the market value, and that's going to be the thing, inshallah.
It's not the same as the money.
Yeah. No, it's viewed in the same category, inshallah. So fair. Number 7. Yes.
I don't know if I was here for 401k. You take it on the whole sum.
Okay, yeah. So 401k. So I didn't answer the whole thing. I told you I'd get back to it. So 401k here. This is what I have. It's on page number 3. Footnote number 8. Okay, so the tax. These are preliminary. So this is still undergoing discussions among scholars, but this is what we have pretty much. The tax can be subtracted or may be subtracted when you're calculating zakat if it's certain that at the end of the maturity period the taxes will be subtracted from the amount. Okay, but in reality there is no guarantee, there is no certainty that the taxes will be subtracted because your tax bracket when you retire is going to be radically different than the tax bracket in which you're in. Because when you retire, you're not in the same tax bracket anymore because you're not going to be earning the same amount of money per year. So there's a major problem, there's a major level of uncertainty when it comes to 401k. That's why there's so much confusion, even among scholars, regarding this question. You kind of have to play your best bet in terms of what to deduct in terms of taxes. So taxes are the biggest variable here. If you knew what your tax bracket would be in terms of the tax penalty that you're going to be getting, then you could deduct it. But you don't know, so you try and figure it out somehow to the best of your ability, or you pay kind of as much as you can, and then you try and offset it somehow later on. That's because the actual value of the account, whether you withdraw it early or whether you withdraw it after maturity, it's not including the tax portion. Right? So technically, it would be unfair if you say you have to pay for all of it, because when you withdraw it, whether you withdraw early with a penalty, you're going to suffer a tax penalty, or whether you withdraw after it matures, you're going to suffer a tax penalty. So to say that you're going to pay on the entire thing zakat, when you're never ever going to receive the full amount, that would be unfair. But to say that you're going to subtract the entire tax when you're in a separate tax bracket now, that would also be unfair. And in order to throw another variable in there, if you take into consideration the inflation value, right, then there's another problem. Right? So it's very difficult because all these variables have been thrown into the equation. It's very hard to come up with some fixed ruling on this. So this is the general rule which kind of will help guide you towards what to do. But the penalty can never be subtracted. You should not subtract the penalty ever unless you're actually incurring the penalty. So you only incur the penalty if you withdraw early, right? And if you don't withdraw early, I know some scholars have said you should subtract the penalty as well. Why would you subtract the penalty if you don't incur the penalty, and then that capital is being used as an investment to increase every single year, and that penalty that you may have subtracted is now being used to give you more productive wealth through investment? So I couldn't see the basis of that. Right? I've spoken with several scholars who gave that fatwa, and I just didn't feel that they were able to justify that. So this would only arise if you had to withdraw early. Then you can subtract that penalty because you're going to incur it anyways. Okay, so that's the general rule when it comes to penalties and taxes on accounts like 401k or IRA or something like that.
I got a question.
You have to wait, brother. Sorry. So does that help a little bit? So, what number are we on? 8? Number 8.
The question is the process of calculating the zakat itself, is it calculating? Is it actual portion? Calculating.
Just the calculation itself? No, the calculation itself is not an act of worship. Someone else can calculate it for you.
Alright, so for the example that you gave earlier from Muhammad, who had a car and he bought a car and all that, and then at the end he ended up having a wealth of $7,000. If you want to pay 2.5% of that, it's only $175. If Muhammad comes and says at the end of the year, say, you know what, I'm going to pay zakat as if I have $1 million, or I have $500,000. I'm going to pay that much in zakat.
He wants to pay extra.
Because I don't have time to calculate. I
Okay.
have the energy or the ability to calculate how much do I have. I'm just gonna pay more, and خلاص, يعني I'm sure it's gonna be more than I owe.
As long as you pay more zakat, there's no problem. If you end up paying less, and then there's a problem. As long as you pay more, the calculation itself is not an accurate question. So if you assume that, you know what, okay, I know how much money I have no more than $100,000, right? I might have like 60, 70, 80, somewhere around there. I'm just gonna pay zakat on $90,000 or $100,000. Yeah, you're fine. But you better not have $105,000. Yeah.
Estimation is allowed.
Estimation is allowed. Yeah, absolutely. It's best to estimate. I mean, it's best to round up. Even if you calculate, it's best to round up. Right? So if you say, like, you know what, I have an investment over there. It was $20,000, and it's making like 2-3% every month or every quarter, for example, right? And you say, you know, there's no way it broke $25,000. I don't have the time. I don't want to contact them and have them send me the statement and this and that. There's no way in the world it broke $25,000. I'm just going to count that as 25. My bank balance is 5. My other savings deposit is 10. Add them all up together. Okay, I'm going to pay. You're fine. You're fine. Just make sure you do not underpay. Then you're fine, inshallah.
But if you overpay, can you deduct it when you calculate exactly that this is?
No, but that's his whole point. So he wants to overpay, so he doesn't calculate it.
No, but when you calculate next year,
Yeah.
and you find that $5,000 was overpaid,
Yeah.
can you deduct it from the next year?
No, because you just give it.
Gone.
No, the whole point. Your intention. Look, your intention when you're overpaying. If your intention is to overpay and make it all zakat,
Gone.
then it's gone. If your intention when you're overpaying is I don't have time right now, but I'm going to have time next month to calculate, then it's considered advanced zakat payment, whatever you had overpaid. So it depends on your niyyah. And I think what he's asking is that my niyyah is just overpaid and alhamdulillah it's done.
So why would we provide our non-Muslim accountants some sort of a calculation method? So while they are preparing our checks, they can also tell us.
That's a very good question. Why don't we provide non-Muslim accountants with that? I think a better question is, why don't we provide Muslim accountants with that first of all? There are no Muslim accountants. No, there are a lot of Muslim accountants. The problem is, your accountant only takes into consideration your income, not your savings. So you don't give your savings balance to your accountant. No, you give all your investments and everything to your accountant. No. Why would your accountant know all your offshore Swiss bank account deposits and all that stuff? Why would you tell them that? You know? Only the NSA knows that. Yeah, no, you wouldn't do that. But what we're doing, I'll tell you, part of the project that we're doing, this website I was telling you about, we're also making a program to have what's called a certified zakat accountant. Right? With someone who you come to and you're willing to share, everything with them, and they just do the whole thing for you. 10-minute procedure, and generally we're only gonna train, for the most part, people who are already CPAs. So if someone who's a CPA and they want to come in and get certified as a certified zakat accountant, we're gonna have this service. It's like a small fee service or whatever. It's gonna be a great asset to the community.
Is that part of the Amini
Oh yeah, it could be. It could be. So inshallah, so I think this is coming. It's just everyone who's in the project is really overloaded, but it's been in the works for about 6 months now.
If you provide that to TurboTax people, maybe they'll listen.
We provide what?
TurboTax people, or the software, TurboTax software.
TurboTax.
You provide them, you might collect some royalty on that.
Collect the royalty. What's the name?
Number 9.
Number 9.
I don't have a number, but let me know when.
Who's number 9? No, number 9? Number 10? Number 9? Okay, who's number? Okay, who wants to be number 9? Bismillah.
My question was a clarification on the business side of it. You said it's better for the business to pay the tax than the zakat.
No, I didn't say it's better for the business to pay the zakat. I said it's better to do whatever obligates more zakat to be paid.
So the question is more towards the inventory being sold and the inventory you're trying to get.
Yeah.
Since the inventory is being sold over a time period,
Yes.
is the expenses for that business is also allowed to be calculated over a period or for that particular month when it's due?
The expenses of the business, the expenses are deducted as well.
But for the whole year or just for that month?
What if the
Whatever is due.
see the expenses for the whole year in the business, they would already have been incurred up until that month. So technically, when you say you're subtracting the expenses for that month, you're automatically including the expenses for all the previous 11 months because you didn't pay zakat in the previous 11 months. It's really more, it has to do with the linguistic wording of the question, right? So it's like, more people will understand it if we use the home example, right? So some scholars say you're allowed to deduct the 1-year payment on your 30-year mortgage, right? And I'm saying no, you're allowed to deduct the 1-month payment on your mortgage because the way you pay off your mortgage is on a monthly basis. You don't pay it off on a yearly basis, right? So the thing is, the two statements almost are equivalent because when you deduct every month, right, you're only going to deduct the month in which you're paying zakat. You've already deducted the 11 months because you already paid it to the bank, right? So it's automatically deducted. So technically, both statements end up being the same thing, but one of them is more precise from a technical perspective. So does that clarify?
Yes.
Okay, number 10. Brother in the back, you want to comment?
Regarding your 401, 427, or retirement funds, what's wrong with looking at the cash gathered today?
Of which one?
For 401k.
401k.
For IRA.
Yes.
If I took all the money out today, took it all out,
Yes.
I'm going to pay taxes, I'm going
Yeah.
to pay penalty, and instead of 100,000.
You would or you wouldn't?
I would.
You would.
If I have 100,000
Yeah.
for example, if I
Yeah.
take it out today,
Yeah.
I'm going to end up with $65,000.
Right.
Because I'm going to pay taxes, I'm
Right.
going to pay penalty, state tax, royalties, and
So
all
you're
that.
saying what's wrong with that?
What's wrong with it?
Okay, what's wrong with it is if you don't actually do it, then you don't incur the penalty.
So when I'm doing the zakat, I'm assuming I have the money, but I don't have the money.
Right. So this is the point. Let me give you some hypothetical calculations. Right. Okay. So you have $10,000 in a 401k. Let's say it's time for you to pay zakat now. Okay. And you say I'm going to subtract the tax and I'm going to subtract the penalty, which is let's say $2,000. Okay, so I'm going to pay zakat $8,000. Okay? So you pay zakat $8,000. Now the next year, that $10,000 turns into $11,000 because you had a 10% increase on the investment. The way that you got that $11,000 amount only happened because you had $10,000. Otherwise, if you actually had $8,000, you would have got a 10% increase and you would have $8,800. So your amount for the next year is messed up because if you actually have that value, so technically you use that extra $2,000 to make an extra 10%, an extra $200 or whatever, $200 on it, but you're not going to pay for it. So it's not fair that you are going to collect money and use it as capital to make more money, and yet when it comes to zakat, you're going to subtract it and you're not going to pay on that. That's what's not fair about it.
See, I don't have the money. It's in the account.
It doesn't matter.
So I'm assuming I have the money when I pay the account.
No, you don't assume you have the money because here's the thing. So let's say you take my example, right? And after 10 years, you withdraw and you incur a penalty and you incur a tax, right? When they're going to give you the money after they subtract tax and penalty, are they going to make all those previous subtractions of zakat that you had subtracted before, or are they going to give you the amount including all the amount that was actually in the account? It's always going to be, it's not going to equal back, it's not going to equal up back to what it was. So your subtractions you're doing for zakat were not going to be calculated in when you actually go and pull your money out. That's the reason. So it's not fair. So it's not fair because when it comes to collecting, you're collecting more in the end of the day, and when it comes to giving zakat, you're paying less zakat in the end of the day. You don't see that?
Uncertain. Uncertain. You don't know. You don't
If
know.
you're paying zakat on the cash hand, that's why I look at it.
It's not your money until you
It's
withdraw
not
it.
your money.
It doesn't matter. But the capital, do you understand the point that the capital is being used as an investment to get you more money?
That's fine, but you will pay at the end when you have more money.
You're not gonna pay the same exact amount. So when you incur the penalty, that's when you should actually deduct the penalty. Not when you keep on incurring it. You're not incurring the penalty every
Same thing, my father had Pakistan, we have a private fund in PIA, and they didn't ask them to pay zakat on that because he didn't technically own that money.
No. So this is the fundamental point that I was trying to say. As long as you have limited access to, and let me give you a very practical scenario. I know somebody who has $750,000 in the 401k account because it just kept on growing. Literally, they have $750,000 in their 401k and they have $5,000 in their bank account. Okay? And I know several people who have $25,000 in their bank account. So you're telling me that the person who has $25,000 in the bank account has to pay zakat, and the person who has $750,000 in the 401k doesn't need to pay zakat?
The same thing as you buy diamond, you pay zakat.
It cannot make sense, because if you lose your job and you're broke and you need a hospital surgery or something, you will have access to that 401k. Even though it's limited, you can't take it out whenever you want. You will incur a penalty. When you incur the penalty, you go ahead and you subtract the penalty. But you can't subtract the penalty if you're not going to incur it in the first place. It's like saying that, you know what, I have stocks, okay? And Charles Schwab is my broker. Let's say Charles Schwab, I have a super broker. Every time I make a transaction, he's going to charge me $1,000. So what I'm going to do is, I have $10,000 in stocks. If I were to sell it, I'm going to subtract $1,000 because that's how much he charges me. I hold the stock for 10 years. Every year when it's time for me to pay zakat, I subtract the $1,000 from that, just in case I had sold it. Would you say it's fair? You would never say it's fair. So therefore, the same rule applies across the board.
A related question is, what are the retirement funds that you are a state employee and that you're getting, like the retirement funds, and that's not in your control? And when you retire, you're getting it. So, but you have to pay.
We talked about pension plan. You missed that one? Yeah, read the notes. Check the video.
Very important question.
Fuad is pointing to some people. Who? Okay. Yes, Auntie.
Question. If you have an investment that fluctuates in value,
Yes.
so I understand you pay zakat on that, but you also get a fixed monthly dividend on that. Do you pay the whole dividend on that zakat or a percentage?
So the thing is, when you get a dividend on an investment, the dividend is going to be going, either it's going to be reinvested and becomes part of your investment,
So you need it as part of your monthly.
or it's going to come into your bank account, and you're going to either keep it in your bank account or you're going to be spending it on something.
Spending it.
Right. So the thing is, it's automatically going to be calculated at the when you're calculating your zakat. If it was in your account, it automatically got calculated. If it was spent, it automatically got deducted from your calculation because it's not there anymore. So you don't even need to worry about it. It's somehow automatically going to be factored in. So you don't need to worry about like, well, where did the dividend go and how did it get transferred? Because you're going to check your bank account and you're going to check your brokerage account.
I think my main thing was what you mentioned about a CD, that basically the interest on CD, all of it should be given as a cost. My question was, in this case, since it's a dividend from interest, you know, if I calculated it correctly, should I have just paid all of it towards the cost?
It depends. Is the dividend 100% interest or is it partial? I mean, it depends on what kind of dividend it is. If the dividend is like 100% interest, then it acts like a CD. Right? So then, yeah, you give it out. But usually, if it's a dividend on a regular company like Microsoft or whatever.